The existence of the intellect is well known. Plato and Socrates made sure of that. But how the intellect can be activated with dementia residents, that's the revelation. It's about the intellect part of the psyche, separate to the mind, and retraining the intellect to think. Now, it does depend to a certain extent on the individual's history, how they've lived, their fitness, their resilience, how they like to think, and their healthy outlook, all of which I've written about, both books, The Resident's Voice and The Resident's Rise. Now, with people that have an interest in thinking and learning, this also plays a big part. School teachers who have taught all their life and continued reading, and those that have continued quizzes and crosswords, they find it easier to think, learn and engage as well. But everyone can learn from this work and receive help from this work. It just depends on their interest and you getting their engagement. Now, I have noticed that those residents that have been sporty, I mean, there's many different examples I'll give in terms of those that engage well with this work, this thinking work, but those residents that have been sporty, especially high-level sport, regional, national sport, they've been motivated, driven, and, enthusiastic about their sporting achievements and abilities, they also make an effort to think as well. They've had physical fitness, now they're into intellectual fitness, so that effort, that motivational factor comes in. Those residents that have been school teachers, as I mentioned, they're used to reading and thinking and learning and teaching. They link in well with the workshops, especially those that have continued reading. Not all dementia residents, teachers included, continue their reading once they come into the unit, and they do need to be encouraged. But for those that have, then they'll click into the thinking workshop process very well. Now, some dementia residents, like men, do find it more difficult initially to come into the workshops because the majority are women for a start, in their mid-80s, Alzheimer's, and so they can feel a bit awkward unless they feel they've got a purpose or a reason for being there. But once they see that there is a benefit in the work, they will come. One example was a man, lovely man, who was a farmer. Actually, he used to grow potatoes, and it took him some time. He'd sort of wander around the workshop and look in and, quizzical look, but he'd never sit down. But it wasn't until he started to be used by the other ladies, actually, for lugging around the heavy chairs which they couldn't move because they wanted to sit by their best friend. Once he started doing that, all the furniture moving, and had a purpose in the group and was well appreciated in the group, he started to join in. So that was lovely. So there's various aspects. Now, another thing that really helps with dementia residents engaging and thinking is you understanding their background, of course. Now, if you're a relative and you know the person's background, of course, that's a great help. If you're a staff member, it really pays to read the notes, the clinical notes, in detail, depth and detail, because there's a fantastic amount of information in the clinical notes. The doctor's notes, the initial assessment history is often huge, can be up to 20 pages in terms of the assessment of every aspect of the person's life, but in particular their interests, their hobbies, their connections, their work, their profession, their travel, all those aspects of life. Not so much the medical comes into it to a certain extent, but it's more the sort of psychosocial aspect, which will play a big part in this thinking work if you understand that. And also the relatives assessments that they write in for the diversional therapy assessments, everything about the preferences, interests, likes, dietary habits of their relative. That's also helpful. So as I mentioned, I've written in detail in these two books about this work, Residents' Voice, Residents' Rise, a lot there. Thank you for your links, likes and subscriptions.